We need to make it an active decision, a conscious decision to say, I want to do something different and give me the tools to do that. And guess what? You're going to need some help.
Welcome to the STEM Career Coach, hosted by Donnie McClary. Whether you're starting out or stepping up, this is your guide to growing in STEM.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's session of the STEM Career Coach. I'm Data Science Donnie, and I'm very excited for an exciting session today with Erica Lockheimer. Erica, welcome to the podcast, and why don't you tell the audience a bit about yourself?
Hi, Donnie, and thank you for having me. So, just a little bit about myself. Let's see, my background is in computer engineering. I am the first person in my family to graduate from college. Might have taken me a little bit of a long time, but I did it. I've been in industry for quite some time, working in industry, start off as an individual contributor, and then worked myself through management and most recently VP of engineering at LinkedIn for the last 13 and a half years. So I'm an engineer by trade. I will always be an engineer by trade.
Amen.
Thank you. Amen, indeed. And I recently decided to pivot in my career, and I started a media platform, and it's called Humanize Her. I'm in my studio, and we could talk about what it is, but I decided to focus on elevating women's voices in tech and also across all industries. So that's something I'm enjoying right now because I'm learning about women in all spaces and really bringing their voices out of the shadow and sharing their stories and really more of a movement. So, yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for joining again. It is great to hear that, as you said, engineer forever and always, but you also, took quite a huge leap, to, make the pivot to, start up Humanize Her and really start to, push, maybe a little bit of a different set of agendas, but also keep your foundation and, technology and what you do. If you could dive a little bit deeper into Humanize Her and really what kind of sparked you to, take the plunge? I'm sure it wasn't an easy one.
No, it was not easy, and I'll be honest, that decision is still always a struggle, like, am I on the right path or not? And we're always growing, I believe, as humans, and we're always evolving, and what things we enjoyed at some period time in our life, it could also change. So,
For
what
sure.
sparked it? So
Yeah,
I've
exactly.
been in industry for a long time. I led 1,000-person teams and built
Wow.
amazing products and was part of the dot-com era, the mobile era, the social era, and now we have the AI era. Just came to a point where I was like, I needed a little bit more time back to take a pause, and I've never taken a pause in my career. 2 beautiful children, now 18 and 16.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's a lot of work. I'll take that. But, I just wanted to have a little bit more time with them, and I realized when I took that pause, I am also type A personality. I think I took 3 months, but I wanted more control of my time. But one thing that stayed true to me is I've always been passionate about engineering, also women in field, making sure they had opportunity. And so I started Women in Tech at LinkedIn. It was a community inside the company and outside of the company. And so when I took that pause, it just kept on getting into my gut and my soul. And I'm like, that's part of me and it will always be part of me. And I still would have women and allies come to me. And I just felt that they needed a community, they needed a voice. And I wanted to not just tell the stories behind closed doors. Like we can't be kept secrets. Exactly. And so that's where the podcast, we have amazing technology. We have podcasts like you're doing where you could share these stories, right?
100%.
And so that's where I was like, I need to do a podcast. And so I'm in my studio that was going to be a a pool house, and I was working in construction, and I was like, and I turned it into a studio, and that's how it evolved, and I reached out to some women. I worked at LinkedIn, and they still work at LinkedIn. They're in production and media, so as an engineer, I pay attention to craft very highly. We're multi-cameras, we're only in person, and I do some of the editing, use some of the AI tools. I have an editing team, I have a design team, so I'm
Wow.
really going all the way to
Absolutely. Legit. Yes, ma'am.
perfection and premium because that's how I enjoyed building all of my life, and so I wanted to learn the best tools, and so that's where Humanize Her came about, and it's really not just a podcast, it's really a movement. It's about sharing stories, women in entrepreneurship, women in sports, women in politics, women in tech, every single industry, and sharing those pivots, sharing those stories. And then also I bring the community together. So I've already done several community events where, hey, let's meet the podcasters. I just am coming off what is it, last 3 weeks, I had about 200 people here,
Wow.
20% men, 80% women. And it's like, hey, let's come together, let's support one another, buy from one another, learn from one another, and network because I don't know about you, but I never got to where I was in my career without somebody else helping me. And so we
Absolutely.
need to continue to do that. And outside of your corporate walls, inside, your tiny 1 to 2 person team, how do you create that energy and help one another? So I think that that's needed, and that's something that's very much part of what Humanize Her is as well, community and podcast. So
Fantastic. And merging the two is exactly what a lot is kind of missing in some scenarios. It's one thing to talk about something, it's another to act about it and try to bring people together that are like minded. That's all, like you said, a movement. And one thing that I noticed a long time ago, seems like forever ago, about 8 years when I pivoted into technology recruitment, was the fact that most of the candidates that were applying to my jobs were male. Most of the candidates, almost, especially on this part of the world, there's a lot of engineers in India, as I'm sure you're well aware, and also in different pockets of APAC. But Indian engineers were essentially, spreading throughout APAC. They were applying to every job that I was advertising and working. And it was quite funny to me because I pivoted before that to finance and accounting, where it was a bit more of a mix and it was a bit more of a, I would say 60-40 versus, the ideal 50-50 that we're always shooting for. But it really stuck out to me going from finance to technology. And it was just a huge gap in just the people applying to my jobs. And for me, I'm, from a diversity background. I've always believed in bringing everyone up, regardless of, what your maker model is, as I like to say. And then as well as, bringing those individuals to the forefront. I think, there's a lot of preconceived notions when it comes to what the right fit looks like, especially in technology. And for me, it was also some of the best conversations I've ever had with individuals and some of the most impactful conversations from my learning as far as what they do and just what makes a good candidate. So I learned a long time ago to partner with these types of individuals and really help from a recruitment perspective make sure that they are being sent to the jobs, make sure that they are it wasn't just companies that maybe told me about diversity and said, hey, I want more, diversity in my tech team. No, I kind of just said, hey, I'm going to send you more diversity and let's see what you do with it.
right.
And especially in Asia, it's a little bit slower to catch on to a lot of the, I would say, some of the diversity waves, especially America. And I would say Europe is a little bit more at the forefront compared to,
Okay.
us in Malaysia or the rest of APAC. But it takes someone to, try and change that. And I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of amazing women leaders in technology on podcasts, our mutual friend Tell,
Yes, Kelly
and
Whitney, she's an
yeah,
icon.
oh, the legend. Absolutely, absolutely, and still has, my level of energy, and it makes me so, optimistic of my future. But, we need these conversations. We need
Mhm.
these types of platforms, and that's why, I wanted you to spend a bit of time with Humanize Her because, we need to come together. We need
Yep.
to really, stick together, and, that's the only way, some things are really gonna change. Now, a part of, I would say some of the things that you're doing, what were some ways that you think, companies can improve, training and development in the workplace, as far as more inclusive ideas and mindsets to, drive themselves forward?
Yeah, it's an excellent question, and congratulations on your pivot as well and
Thank you, thank
changing
you.
career directions.
No
It
looking
takes
back.
courage. No, and I know it takes a lot of courage, to do that, and so congratulations to you and doing you, not expectations of you. It's very different.
Absolutely. Oh, very much so.
So, it's interesting that you bring this up because this is also how Humanize Her is evolving as well, where I'm
Mhm.
helping more companies because I did this at LinkedIn. It was 20% of my job. So
I'm
one of the
sure.
not only leading, from one of LinkedIn's largest lines of business, I was very dedicated to making sure that we had an inclusive culture. We hired inclusively. We really got the best talent. It's not about oh, I need diversity in my team. I just need to make sure I hit quotas. Nobody wants to be hired based on that. It's based on merit,
100%.
it's based on qualifications, and there are amazing talent out there that is diverse. You just maybe have to look a little harder, right? So one of the things that I did at LinkedIn was do exclusively that. And so we actually broke it up into a couple of things. And you asked about training and coaching and all those things. So number one was we created programs that we called it Women Invest. So investing in women and also the allies, the people in the company, because you got to realize it's not about, I actually had this one conversation early on where I wanted to bring in always flip the ratio, right? So make sure that everybody understands, have empathy. You don't have empathy until you really feel what the environment is. So, hey, let's bring 20% men in and let's bring 80% women and let's gather, let's learn from one another. And it's interesting because I had some men that reached out to me like, "Oh my gosh, Erica, what am I supposed to say? Or what am I supposed to teach?" I'm like, "Actually, your job right now is to listen." It's like, that is what the moment is to listen and learn and then figure out how we can respond and make the world a better place together and this company. And that was, I think, an eye-opening moment for many. And then just realizing that, wow, I didn't realize there was these personal, struggles, or wow, I didn't know that that meeting that I was running was not inclusive, or I wasn't hearing all the voices in the room, or these little things that I could do to make sure everybody feels comfortable to say how they're feeling, what their viewpoint is, how they want to contribute to whatever you're building. And it's not just women, it's people that have quiet voice, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
it's like,
Introverts, 100%.
people, the introverts,
Yeah,
the
yes, yes.
room will take out all the oxygen easily in the
I
room.
think
And
it's
so
not.
it's true. And
Yeah.
it's so how do you create that a moment, and how do you become a better leader to make
Mhm,
sure that
mhm.
you're providing your team? Because I'm only as good as my team. And if I'm not hearing inputs from every parts of the team, I will get it wrong. There might be something I'm missing. I'm not at every level of the organization in the trenches knowing exactly how everything's working. So when you talk about training, it's really about how do you create an inclusive culture and listening to all voices and how all voices are different. So that definitely was a big part of what I've done in the past, my leadership. And then also just making sure how you hire inclusively. Are you going to places where you have an opportunity to get more diverse talent? I mean, we talked about Kelly Whitney, the Grace Hopper Conference is one of the largest conferences for women in computing. I mean, you got to go to those places, and guess what? Your mind will be blown, and you're like, "Wow, there's so many women," right? So you have to put in that effort, and then you as a recruiter, you are just talking about that, like, you will bring those candidates to the table, right? And so are you partnering with the right people that think like that? So I think the hiring is important, but again, go back to the point, once you bring them into the organization, how do you make sure they're successful? So there's another thing where it's like we can give everybody the right training, we could bring in all the right people, but then guess what? On the day to day, how is that person excelling in their career? What opportunities are you giving them? When you decide to give a project, are you looking around or just the person that raises their hand, right? And are you tapping people on the shoulder? Because that's how it works. And that's a lot of advice that I give to a lot of leaders as well as individual contributors. Like if you want to do something different in your career, you want that opportunity, you better say it. You better communicate that because if people are not think you want people to think, oh, they'll think about everyone. It's just it's not how it works. But you need that give and take on both sides. So definitely raise your hand. Hey, I'm interested. And then as an inclusive leader, you're gonna look around and you're gonna listen, you're gonna pay attention. And so I feel that there's a lot of training that we have to be conscious. There's so many unconscious activities that we do on a daily basis. So when you talk about changing the organization, you talk about training, that is some of the things that I'm actually working on bringing Humanize Her. I have a couple of corporate companies that have reached out to me and they said, "Hey, I want to do exactly that, build a more inclusive culture. Can you help me?" It's actually surprising and sometimes still shocking to me that that this is it's a gap. It is a skill, and I get it. It's a skill gap because you have a lot of managers that are up and coming, right? They were working at one level, maybe they've never been exposed, right? And so they need to think differently. They need some training. All of us are growing. All of us are learning. You're saying even culturally in different countries. I mean, it's so different. I've gone to India, and I even started Women in Tech over there, right? And I learned a whole bunch of different things about
I can
they
only
have
imagine. Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
It's a lot, but I feel that is where I think we need to make it an active decision, a conscious decision to say, "I want to do something different and give me the tools to do that." And guess what? You're gonna need some help
Oh, yeah,
with people
for
who know how to
sure.
do it. So
And you have to start somewhere as well.
mhm,
I think there's a lot of individuals, especially at very senior, positions, that essentially, don't know where to start. They're too removed from the people that are actually at the ground floor, the people that are essentially the culture that you're trying to build. It's not yourself. It's not the C-suite. It's not the board of directors. It's literally the people, the worker bees, the people that are on the ground actually doing the job every day. And sometimes I feel leaders are a little bit too removed,
absolutely.
from those levels. And as well as there's a lot of, I've done, thankfully, through Airswift, a lot of trainings on biases and unconscious biases and just really trying to, improve yourself and really be a bit more vulnerable with who you are, as a person. And then from there, typically, in my opinion, I would say once you know your biases, once you know, kind of your ticks and kind of some of the things, then you can do something about it. You might go to one person just because, you've worked with them the longest and you don't realize that that is a person you choose for everything. Someone needs to kind of tell you these things, but I think creating those layers and those open lines of communication could potentially be, a little bit easier said than done.
Yeah, no, you brought up, a couple excellent points there that I just wanna touch on. Um, the last point especially, sometimes you don't even realize your own biases and you're picking on the same people to do the same project. I have seen that so many times, and also where the discomfort happens, especially during reorgs, right, in a larger company. It's like, okay, now you inherit this team. And guess what? You were working with this other set of folks that you probably groomed, you probably hired, and all those things. And all of a sudden you feel uncomfortable because now this is a group of people that you didn't hire. You don't have relationships for. And then I've seen swapping. Oh, well, maybe they're not good. I need to bring in my person. And sometimes maybe it's valid. You need to shake things up and put people in different places. But a lot of time is guess what? They have their own biases of who they wanna work with, and especially when they've been in a company for a long time, because they have the trust, they just think it'll move faster, it's easier, but you're doing that thing again. You're creating that bias, you're not giving opportunity, and you gotta and it just frustrates me, so so I'm like, sometimes that awareness is you gotta check yourself. Are you doing that, and why are you making those decisions? And then the other part that I really like that you mentioned is when executives are so high up, and I remember I had to check myself as I grew up the ladder. I'm like, I
1,000 people is a lot
actually
of people, mate. That's a
it
lot of
is, and
people to know.
it is, and it's like how do I know what was going on when I used to have like a nice 30-person team? Oh, that was
Mm.
amazing, right? I knew everything, how everything worked, and then as you go up, you're farther and removed, you trust more
Oh, yeah.
people, but then you got to check yourself. So I had to figure out how am I going to understand what's going on in the trenches. To your point. And so I had to, number one, build trust with different people in the organization so they feel good to come to me with the challenges. Because if they're scared to come to me, I'm going to be a horrible leader. Horrible leader. I don't know what's going on. And so I definitely work on those relationships. I said, please, it's amazing. I'm like, also, 'cause even at LinkedIn, I was there for 13 and a half years. I was the person that was in the small team. Everybody knew me. And then all of a sudden you get there and it's like, so and so's afraid to talk to me. Like, "You're from the same area that I what's going I swear I'm fine." And I will be open, but there's a thing that happens, and I've done that too in my career where you put these people on a pedestal and you feel like you can't talk to them. And you be real like, you actually can if you're in the right environment and there's that right leader. So I think it's more responsibility when you get into those higher suite levels to then go down and say, "Hey, I have those create some vulnerability yourself. Share how you're feeling, share that what you want from people in the organization." So that's important. One thing that I remember was eye-opening that we did at LinkedIn when I started Women in Tech is the culture was amazing, but we wanted to make it great, right? So we hired a consultant to go in and ask the women in the company how they were feeling. And oh my goodness, when you get anonymous feedback, which gotta be careful, never make any of that totally public, but you get that information and you understand how people are feeling. And I remember them and they even interviewed me, right? And we shared these results in front of the executive team, the
Um,
CEO, everyone. And they're like, I had no idea
of
that this is
course,
how some
yeah.
people in my organization feel. And then they're like, "Oh my gosh, I wanna do something about this." And then that's where really was they became the best allies, they became the best advocacy for what we were trying to do, and, I would have chats with the CEO, and we'd have in front of the company, right, and the
Mhm.
CTO. I mean, that is where that awareness you have to open up your eyes, right? You have to see what's going on,
Oh,
you
yeah,
have to
bulls
and
up now.
it's data, right?
100%. And it's also, opened up a bit of a segue, which is perfect. So thank you for that. Into, it's opened up a bit of other issues, underlying issues that, employees are finding. And this is across the board. Mental health has really picked up, especially in the technology world. It's moving at the
Mhm.
speed of light. One of the things I always, when I partner with startups and helping them find people, is to look for people that kind of eat, sleep, and breathe their job. Because you need to wear many hats, you need to pivot all the time, you need to be resilient. You got investors here, there, and everywhere. You need to do presentations. And when we're at work sometimes, and a lot of us, we don't really think about ourselves too much, you know?
Mm.
And, one of the things that is very much involved in DEI and inclusive cultures, I think, is caring about the individuals that work for you and their mental health. I would love to hear maybe some of the conversations that you're having with different senior leaders on how to, take care of, their staff, especially in these high pressure environments that they're building because it's the nature of the beast.
Right. No, I and mental health is I'll be honest, I'll take myself as an example. There's moments where I just was so early in my career and just hustled and I would just go, go, go. And I personally didn't take care of my
Absolutely.
mental health. My father, was dying, and for example, and I just didn't even tell anybody, right?
I
And it's
want,
like here I have to take care of him, help my mother,
of course.
literally on bedside and morphine and all the other things that happened. I didn't tell anybody up to a
Mhm.
certain point because I wanted to have my game face on, right? And
And
I'm
almost
like,
breaking point, I'm sure as well. Yeah.
oh, big breaking point. And I know these moments in my life because guess what? We all go through these moments in our life.
Yes.
It's called life. We're gonna live it.
Exactly.
So I remember being at that point where I finally had mentioned to my boss, I was like, "Hey, I think I'm gonna need some time off. Like, my dad's not able to eat." He's like,
Yeah.
"Are you
Where did that come
Erica?"
from? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He's like, what are you talking about?" And he's like, "Erica, you need to take time off." And you need to be there with your family, and I'm so glad I did because I
Mm.
was able to handle stuff, be there for my family, but even I was even, early career and a leader, but I even struggled to share how I felt, so that gave me a lot of empathy to, number 1, have a boss that was like told me that you need to stop because I would do that and I would tell other people because they would be vulnerable, they tell, "Oh, take time off, take time off." But when it came to myself I didn't do it. I was like, "What is going on?" So stop saying you need to, as a leader, help that in that moment because they're trying to they're trying to do it all. And you think, "Oh, nothing's changed. I can continue. I can continue." But you're actually not continuing in your best form. I'm gonna break it to you. You're not at your 100% because you're over here, you're thinking over here, you're not so actually, I always give the advice, it's better to remove yourself in this moment. Sometimes you will be at 20% capacity. 30%. You're better off with the team and all those things if you're on a job function where you have some of that redundancy to be able to just share that. And most of the time you'll find out that people are very supportive and they want to help you. And
Absolutely.
I and I think that's what's the beauty of people and working in the right company. I'm like, "Oh my goodness, it's not like you need to tell the world what's going on in your life. Tell those few people that are decision makers. So you set expectations because
Mm.
what happens on the reverse side, you don't set expectations. You're not doing as well as you can. Someone else starts making assumptions. Something else is going on. And all of a sudden you're like, what?
Spiral.
Wait,
Yeah, absolutely.
you spiral and you're like, I'm not doing good. I'm not meeting the expectations or whatever. Right. So I think that's the biggest thing is you have to be vocal in those moments. But also as a leader, I go back to leaders is like if there's you sense there's something different because you know that person that and how they work, your job is also to ask, "Hey, Donnie, is
Absolutely.
everything going okay?" You'd be surprised that simple question might have a lot to say, right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And I was actually on a recent podcast with a gentleman named Andrew McMasters, who actually gave me a little bit of advice on the exact scenario you just mentioned, where it's not, you don't just ask if they're okay once, then you ask them a second time, and then you pause and you
mhm,
say nothing. And even if it's a 5 second, 10 second, 20-second pause, that can make all the difference to kind of breaking down that mental wall of that person. Should I say something? Should I say something? Should I say something? All of a sudden they're
mhm,
like, okay, I'll say something. Because there is, as much as people like or don't like, there are some lines between, personal life and work. And some people are a little
yes,
bit nervous or weary of, kind of crossing those two. But we have no choice because regardless inside of us, they are crossed inside no matter what at all times. So you really do
yeah,
need to, if someone is asking, I do encourage people to, open up. I know it's not the easiest thing. It's very vulnerable, but if someone does see a difference in you and maybe is trying to see if you're okay, take that as a sign as that's somebody that cares about you. That
right,
is someone that really wants to, better understand and maybe see something you don't see. Because,
yep,
something that you mentioned, we're in the weeds. We're in it, every day. We're just doing our thing, checking off our tick boxes and then, going to the next project. But if someone does, highlight to you that maybe something's a bit off, maybe something is a bit, awry, then maybe it's time to maybe take a step back and, see
mhm,
what potentially could be done. Because I've seen a few scenarios, which I'm sure you have as well,
yeah,
but somebody didn't say anything at all and they almost drove
right,
themselves literally into the ground and they just don't even recognize their work performance, almost, take the dive, and then you're
right,
wondering what just happened to this person. And it's because,
right,
like you mentioned, they didn't take a break. They didn't tell someone that life was going on. And,
yeah,
unfortunately, sometimes you can only come back from so many things. So, that's why mental health I really am quite passionate about because especially in a sales environment or in a startup
mm,
environment, technology, it
yep,
is that mindset of almost like the army where I came from. You don't say anything about pain. You don't say anything about anything. You just follow your marching orders and you run to that goal line as fast as possible. Thankfully, the rest of the world isn't like the military. You can take time off. You can be, take care of yourself, and I think you should. Some people wear it as a badge of honor how much difficulty or how much strife that they go through, and I think we need to dispel that. In my opinion, it is completely fine, and we need to wear a badge of honor that says, "Hey, I'm going to take care of me."
yeah, I 100% agree, and these are moments, it doesn't define who you are 100% of your entire life. These are moments that you need to behave differently, and that's okay, and it's interesting because as a corporation, a company, small co everybody's gonna keep on asking. That's not gonna go away, but
Kick
if
me,
you
kick
had
me.
exactly. And then you take it off your plate, they're gonna put it back on. So if you have something going on to your exact point and and if you share that, well, guess what? I will probably be a little bit more reserved. Okay, maybe this is not a good time to ask. Or guess what? Now's not the time to like, go crazy. That can wait.
For
That could
sure.
wait a week, And so I think it just makes us more human. It's more reality. I think it's just you actually function better as a team and you understand each other a little bit more. But I agree, we have to be a bit more vulnerable and we should be okay to talk about it. And
A
I think it's fine.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought so. And, with this new generation of, professionals, I feel like it's now more than ever more important to build your professional networks,
Mhm.
and really find like-minded individuals. I wish I would have had that when I was, starting out recruitment or just starting out in life to kind of help me maybe see some things in me that maybe they could have pointed me in the right direction. What advice would you have for young professionals that are trying to build, professional connections? Or maybe different avenues they can go about this because I know somebody like yourself probably might be tapped up from everyone around the world for mentorship and some advice and things like that. I would like to help individuals find authentic professional connections, people that can really kind of get buy-in from, and most importantly, learn a bit.
Yeah, so I think your network is everything, and I can tell you definitely, yeah, at this stage of what I'm even working on right now as I pivoted, my network I've never used LinkedIn more than ever because I'm probably just like you. I'm like, okay, I want podcast guests or I'm doing a community event. I'm reaching out and using my network and tapping my network. I'm like, oh, I want that person, my podcast. You know that, yeah. So network, network, network. It's never been so important. But when early on, I didn't think about it, right? I just was like, oh, these are the people I went to school, and then this is my job, and
Mhm.
that's my work. Actually, it can be so much more if you are a bit more intentional of how you wanna grow it, and it's not like, "Oh, I wanna grow my network because I want something out of it from you." It's more of like you show up to certain things. So, for instance, obviously, if you're in school, you connect with the folks, you connect with them on LinkedIn, you stay connected. I'm still friends with all my college students, my guys, and my one girlfriend that was in computer engineering school. We are still
Impressive.
close, and we hang out. They went to my event, and we still chat, pretty much
There
every
go
day.
Spartans.
Yeah, go Spartans, thank you. But it is so important to keep those connections alive too. It could be like a simple that's what's great about networks like LinkedIn. You like a little thing, you comment a little thing. There's ways to kind of spark that connection where you don't have to spend time with them constantly all the time. There's nuggets of moments that you can add. But think about ways that you can grow your network, right? Now, the ways that you can grow it is say you just start a job. Actually, I was reminded of this. I interviewed these two amazing sisters. This one woman, Sherry Lou Brook, she reminded me because I asked her to be on my podcast. They're going crazy on the podcast. They're like number one on Spotify doing in
Oh,
the US. They're
fantastic.
phenomenal and pivoted. But anyways, when we started off in the conversation, she's like, Erica, this is actually a full circle moment. She's like, do you know when I interned at LinkedIn? I sent out a couple of emails to a couple leaders that I admired and I wanted to have lunch with. She's like, "Not everybody responded,
Yeah,
but
I
you
can imagine.
responded." She's like, "Do
Oh,
you remember those?"
fantastic.
And it's like,
And
I
she
didn't
never forgot it, mate.
and she never forgot, and I worked with her later on in LinkedIn because she was an intern, became product manager, but she reminded me of that, and I'll be honest, I
Amazing.
didn't entirely remember that
Mm-mm.
moment, but she does, to your point, and those are those moments where now I'm starting she's better than me on podcasting, right? So I was like, "I want you on the show. I wanna learn from you now." Right, so this is how it could be a really cool circle moment where, you don't know how it's gonna turn out, and so that's a moment to grow. Or there's other moments where every company or maybe there's an event that you can go to, like a meetup, you'd be surprised. You go to an event, you meet someone to say like, especially now, not being in corporate walls, I have to be even more intentional. I've always given the advice, even when I worked in corporate in a company, people will leave companies, right? And you will go to other
Oh,
companies. Your
yes.
job is network outside of your company.
Mhm.
And you actually become a better leader when you do that as well, because you're getting additional information about how other people are doing
Mhm.
it at other companies. So it's extremely important. But even more so now, realizing in my small little startup world that I need to make more of a conscious effort to make sure I go to those meetups, I meet those people, I
Yeah.
take a walk, or I do that 30-person group meetup. So those are ways that you grow your network, and it's not that I'm trying to get something out of it. It's more like, let's see if we could I have calls all the time where like, "Hey, Erica, can I meet with you?" I'm like, "Okay, I don't have maybe time for a whole hour to meet in person. Let's get on a Zoom call and let's just introduce ourselves, share what we have going on, and we'll see if the world aligns where maybe we can help each other one day." And that's it. And they're
Yeah.
called and then they also could be mentor moments. Don't ask someone, "Can you be my mentor?" I'm like, "That's like getting married."
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I
Thank
don't know
you.
if I can commit to that, right? But I can have a mentor moment with you. Absolutely.
I really love that term, and I've, had that suggestion many times, but I've never I like the mentor moment, it works perfectly. To me, there's find commonalities. I get asked all the time, especially as I'm speaking to, young professionals is, find, university connections,
Mhm.
institution connections, even, grade school, you can find connections,
Oh, yeah.
as well as, put yourself out there, and
You have
another great advice, which is exactly what you talked about with those mentor moments, is ask them for about 15, 20 minutes of their time, or just ask them advice, ask them a question. I really admire, where you're at in your career. What's maybe two or three bits of advice that you would give somebody that would aspire to be you one day? And to me,
I I love that. Yeah, just to add on to what you said,
yeah,
because
please, please.
one of the things that I appreciate is come to me with something that you're looking for also. Maybe there's a
Mhm.
particular problem. That's even more, like, tangible for me to act and help you, and then I also say, "You better check in with me afterwards and let me know how that just send me a text how it went." I just be more prescriptive rather than just like, "Oh, here I am." It's like, yeah, you could be a little bit more.
Yeah, come with a bit of an idea. Everyone's time is precious, and I think we just because of no actual value on time, people just don't realize that, we only have 24 hours in a day, 365 days a year. If someone's going to give you even 5 minutes of your time, you really need to say thank you. You really need to, consciously think about that. And if you are doing that, and be targeted, not just, hey, I would love to have a mentor, but like you said, a few minutes, a few bits and pieces. I'm looking at this. Or maybe, I encourage the university students a lot to reach out to potential, leaders, and maybe could
Yeah.
point them in direction for specialties for different technologies, different type of areas that they're seeing as growth potential within the space. And also, I always say, don't forget these moments because it's your
Mhm.
job and your responsibility to eventually be a mentor to someone, to
Yep.
answer questions like this. And always remember the people that took care of you and try to give back because this is regardless if you realize it or not, this is a whole revolution of individuals that are trying to turn into something and trying to evolve themselves into, whatever they decide that is.
Yeah.
And don't forget the people that help you along the way. And I love that story so much, Erica, because it's just, you didn't even realize it. You didn't even, it was just like, I don't know if you remember this, but, and then comes full circle, right? They're doing
Totally.
fantastic things as I'm sure they would have been. And then now they get to help you as just as much as you help them. And you just never
Right.
know when that's going to happen, right? How many
You
years
don't, and
ago was
that's
that,
the thing.
you?
That was probably I mean, it was probably, I don't know, maybe it was like 10 years ago, I don't know. I don't know how
Exactly.
long
Wow.
or more or more, but you're right. I think it's such a beautiful thing, and that's why I've always been a pay it forward person. It's like you gotta pay it
Thank
forward,
you.
especially when you got the help, you are where you're at. It's really your responsibility, like, as a human to help and lift people, up and get them the opportunities that they need or just connect it. It could be a simple action. I had another woman that she wants me to become a designer. I have a designer that I work with on Humanize Her. She's amazing, Kristen West. I have an up and coming designer. She's like, I just want to get great at design. I go, well, I have a person I'm not that person for you, but I have a question. Let me ask her if she's open to it. So I said, send me an email, send me a blurb of what you're looking for, and I just can it's easy for me to forward it on and say, hey, and are you up for this? And guess what? She immediately responded. She's like, yes, because I realized that the only way I got to where I was in my career is because someone helped me out when I was early on. And now it's beautiful, right? They're connecting. So there's just all this magic that could potentially happen, and it's beautiful when it does, and when you say yes and you open yourself to and then it's always full circle also because I get to become and they get to become a better leader, a better teacher. Everyone wants to teach and help people too, so then guess what? You learn how to teach a younger generation, you learn how to lead a younger generation or something else, There's a lot of stuff that 2 ways, it's 2 ways, I strongly believe.
Yeah, absolutely. And all of this, all these touch points that we spoke about today is really all about building inclusive culture. And it starts inside. That inclusive culture starts with you, and then you bring that inclusive culture and your individualness everywhere that you go. And that is what, I think was a very big theme in today's discussion. And we touched on a lot of different aspects of it. But, the biggest thing is it starts with you. Take charge of
Mhm.
your own career. Take charge of your own self, from a leadership perspective, from an employee perspective, and try to be the person that you would have liked to have had lead you
Yes.
or the teammate that you would have liked to have been. Uh, and Erica, thank you so much. So many personal stories, so many different, specific examples. But this is what we need to share in these types of moments to get to ultimately where we think we can go. Any last words from yourself?
I just want to say, thank you. I think even being on this podcast with you, continue doing what you're doing. But I was introduced, again, it goes back to the network. Telly was on your podcast. She introduced me to you. I'm starting something new. I'm trying to get Humanize Her out in as much as possible. So I just want to bring it back to you that I think what you're doing is amazing. You're helping, the younger generation be leaders in their field. You're also giving the opportunity for people like me and other folks to like have a platform. And so it's not about competing at all. It's about helping one another, and we actually are stronger together. And so I just want to praise you and praise what you're doing, and go go go. And if I can help you with any other guests, definitely hold me accountable, and I would love to help you.
Well, thank you so much. We got to stick together, mate. The only way
Yes.
we're ever going to get anywhere is by, helping each other and give each other a helping hand. And I will definitely be rooting for you, Humanize Her. And I look forward to the next collaboration. And I'm sure you'll have even more stories to share. And just thank you again for your time. I know, like I mentioned, it's very precious. It is your evening, but enjoy. And thank you, audience. This was a good one. And we hope to hear from you soon.
All right, great. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the STEM Career Coach with Donnie McClary. If you enjoyed today's episode, hit subscribe and stay tuned for more inspiring stories and actionable tips. Catch you next time.